Welcome to the Relationship Diversity Podcast, where we celebrate, question, and explore all aspects of relationship structure diversity, from soloamory to monogamy to polyamory and everything in between, because every relationship is as unique as you are. We'll bust through societal programming to break open and dissect everything we thought we knew about relationships, to ask the challenging but transformational questions: who am I, and what do I really want in my relationships? I'm your guide, Carrie Jaroslaw, best-selling author, speaker, intuitive, and coach. Join me as we reimagine all that our most intimate relationships can become. Today's episode is part of our conversation series. I'm just one voice in this relationship diversity movement, and it's important to bring more unique perspectives into the conversation. Today, I'll be talking with Amanda Rue, a modern mystic and pleasure coach, where we talk about how BDSM and kink can be a way for some people to heal their sexual wounding. This conversation was so enlightening and really busts through societal judgments of how society views kink and sexual pleasure. But first, a little about Amanda. She's an erotic energy worker, modern mystic, and pleasure coach. Her work invites us to release shame and come into a more conscious connection with pleasure and healing. She also performs under the pseudonym Rev Rucifer and promotes practices of sacred sexuality through workshops, events, and private sessions, including sensual Reiki and Reiki bondage, a BDSM-inspired healing practice. She's helped thousands of people from all over the world uncover their pleasure within and develop practices that cultivate personal safety, care, and respect. Amanda has made it her life's work to help individuals, organizations, and companies to embrace all that life has to offer through meaningful dialogue, transformative change, and the pursuit of pleasure. Her work has been featured in Forbes, Cosmopolitan, The New York Times, Season 1 and 2 of Sex Life on EPIX, just to name a few. Let's get into the conversation. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Relationship Diversity Podcast. I've got an amazing guest for you today. Her name is Amanda Rue, and I am so excited to learn from her because she works with an area that I don't have much experience with. And like I said in the intro, this is a movement that is not just my voice, it is many voices. So I'm so excited about this. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, welcome, welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yes. So let's start with you just telling us a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are right now.
Yes, totally. So my name is Amanda Rue. I also perform under the pseudonym Rev Rucifer. And currently today I identify as an erotic energy worker and BDSM practitioner and sex relationship pleasure coach. So I just help people release shame and come into a better, more conscious connection with their own pleasure and use that pleasure to kind of heal and move through pain and be able to enjoy life.
Yeah, that is so important because there is so much wounding around sexuality and all of the programming that we're taught or not taught as we grow up, and that we have to figure out on our own in ways that create, shame. And so how did you get into this line of work, and how did you get there?
Well, a lot of lived experience brought me here. So I used to work in advertising. I grew up in the church. Like, how did I get here? This is like, I don't even know.
Yeah, I know.
There's like all these different layers and all the different
Totally.
stories that lead to this one place. But I guess the most significant thing is I did work in advertising kind of during the Me Too movement when that was happening. And I ended up speaking out about my employer, about the situation that I had with my boss in the power dynamics in the workplace, and kind of was a part of the Me Too movement and was in the
Wow.
New York was in the New York Times and kind of was a part of that whole thing. And part of my story is like, if I'm going to be part of unveiling the problem and bringing light to this, that I also want to help provide solutions and ways to heal and grow and learn from this. So it's not just like, oh, we're exposing all this, but we can actually heal and learn from it. So I think all
I
of
love that. That's empowering, right? Because I think in our society we are so used to just spitting out the problem, which I think is important to identify what the problem is to understand what the solution is. And so I'd love to go into that a little bit more. What did you find the problem was? I know there was probably multi-leveled, but what did you find the problem was? And then where the solution came in?
Totally. So I actually love this question because back in my advertising and marketing days, we say like if you can identify the problem, the solution is often in that problem.
Mm,
So for me, like what I really think the problem is that so many of us do not have healthy sexual values. And
mm,
we weren't raised with good sexual healthy values. We don't live in a society that supports sexual health as part of our holistic well-being. So for me, it all comes back to, do you have healthy sexual values, and what is your relationship with your own sexuality, and how does that come to life through all aspects of your life, not just in the bedroom, but as you show up with your friends and family, and your creativity, and how you show up in the workplace, and it touches every aspect of your life. So for me, that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, and I think sexuality is very tied to creativity. We don't talk about it in that way. But for anyone who knows the chakra system, which is an energetic system, the second chakra, which is, about sexuality, is also the creativity center. And so how did the solution play out in your life and in what you're doing today?
Totally. So it is very much a story of, I lived it and I had to figure out how to heal and move through my own process. So even before I started practicing Reiki and energy work, I think I think I'm coming up on 8 years now. So I was
Mm,
doing that even before the Me Too thing, before I decided to speak out. It was just a part of my life, was developing this healing practice. I was healing from a broken heart back then and just learning how to take care of myself. And so it was developing the tools to offer the care that I needed through that healing process, through the ups and downs of that experience, and then really connecting with my own pleasure
mm.
and my own sexual freedom as a way to really reclaim myself and my power and my own story in a lot of ways.
Right, because the sexual wounding so much has to do with power over. And we want to go through that reclamation process of reclaiming our sexual, like our innate sexual power. Because when we claim, I think, our sexuality and claim our sexual pleasure, it is so empowering, right? And I do believe that a lot of, that innate sexuality, sensuality is very primal. It comes, and I think that comes in, children, just, without even being told, their hands go to their pleasure centers because they want to feel good. And then all of the programming of like, don't do that, that's not good, don't do that here, that creates the woundedness. So so tell us a little bit more about the work that you do in the kink community and BDSM, and how that how that has become an empowering practice for you and those that you work with.
Totally. Yeah, they never tell you that like pleasure can be healing and pleasure
Mhm.
can be good. It's like, no, stay away from pleasure. We don't deserve it. We all this stuff that keep us away from it. I don't get it. But part of my exploration into that is the movement into kink and BDSM, and a world that seemed really kind of scary, kind
Mm,
of dungeness, like oh, it's so dark and scary, but really wanting to just explore it. I was really into the feeling of bondage is kind of what got me in. That was my doorway in, which is interesting because, like, for me, growing up, like, I have complex PTSD from my family and raised under capitalism and patriarchy and all of that. But what comes out is a sense of, in my regular life, I feel like I need to control so much. I feel like I have to be in charge. I have to know everything because that eases the anxiety and the fear that I have underneath. So there's a practice in BDSM of, when you are being tied, of being able to really surrender into that moment. And part of that practice is really just letting go and having that trust built with another person, where I can give them some of that power and some of that control just for that moment, just for that minute, so that I can really relax and receive and surrender into the energy and just be in receiving instead of always giving and having to control and having to know everything. So it is such a practice of surrender, which is a spiritual practice that we see in life all the time. Just let it go, surrender to it. And it's a very tangible practice to access that same type of energy of surrender and release.
I love the way you talk about that because I think there are so many judgments about BDSM and it being, just I guess like unhealthy, or like how I just think there's so many judgments, right, about that. And I love that. And what you said, I've heard from other people who do like that submissive feeling because they are in control so much of their life, and just being able to relax and receive is a almost like a spiritual practice. It is a spiritual practice, right? And so I really appreciate your perspective on that. And what about from the other side, from the dominant side? Where is the healing in that?
Totally. Well, I want to go back because
Oh,
there was one thing, like one word that came out, and you used the word submission.
mm,
And that is not a word that I really identify with,
mm,
because, like, I don't, when I'm in a situation like that, I may be receiving or I may be the bottom, but in my practice, I don't like the word submission, just
hmm.
because, and that's me because of my stuff, my trauma with having to be submissive to men and being in service of men in our society so often. So for me in my practice, submission is not a place where I often go, because that doesn't actually feel supportive and grounding and good for me. So I
Yeah.
use language around, like, I receive or I bottom or I'm in some other way, but submission is not something that comes with my practice of BDSM and kink.
I
And
thank
that's,
you. I love
yeah,
that you're clarifying that because I do think that this is an example of the relationship diversity that I talk about, of like, how does it work best for you? Even though, so can you say what the acronym BDSM stands for? It's,
yes.
yeah, go for it.
The B is often bondage. The D is discipline or domination. The S is submission or sadism,
Mhm.
which is receiving pleasure from giving pain. And
Mm.
then there's masochism, which is receiving pleasure from receiving pain.
Got it. Okay. And so there's parts of that that even though that's, what you specialize in, you still don't, that doesn't work for you, the terminology. And I appreciate you saying that because I think that giving the freedom to define it and speak the vocabulary that resonates with you is important, right?
Yes, I always say take what you need and leave
Hmm.
the rest. So if language is not working with you, but you really want to get tied up and you want to be in this, like, oh, I just want to release, but I don't want to be in a submissive mindset.
Mm.
that's not where mentally I want to be to get that feeling. I want to be in a free, I want to be in an open, I want to be in a receiving place. So it fundamentally changes the experience
It
you have based
yeah.
on where your brain, where your mind is.
Yeah, it really does. And I think it releases some of that, you know, expectation of what it's supposed to be like and allows you the space to make it your own. So that's amazing. Thank you. So when you work with people in this area, what do you find people have experience in all the different aspects of the kink and like go into that a little bit more because I don't have really that much experience with it. So, and I'm learning so much. And you're really opening my mind to ways of looking at this. So, yeah, go into it more.
Well, it is a vast world. It is so big. There's so many different variations of it. And it is truly anything outside of the norm. Like when we talk about kink, it's anything outside of whatever is the society or the context, the norm of that community, that culture, whatever. So anything outside of that is going to be a kink. So I think everybody's a little kinky
Hmm.
in some degree. Like
Hmm.
there's something that turns you on that doesn't turn everybody else on. And that's totally cool and welcomed. And there's nothing to be ashamed of in that. So in this world, it is so vast and there's so many different permutations of it that it's really about playing and
Hmm.
about exploring and about using this practice of BDSM and play as a way to learn more about yourself, learn more about your needs, wants, desires, your own boundaries, how to communicate and advocate for yourself, and really be able to have the experiences that feel good and pleasurable for you without judgment and just have it be adult playtime.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, taking anything into an area of play, right, is so important. This is one way that can explore it through play and fun and an exploration of, you can try it and play and it may feel really resonant with you and it may not. So what like I would love to know some of the people who you work with, the journey that they travel, like someone who goes into it and who feels really aligned with it and resonant, and maybe someone who doesn't. If you could take us maybe just down those two paths.
Totally. So I throw events and parties and all kinds of things, and then I'll have people come up and be like, "Hey, Rev, do you want to tie me?" And we'll have a conversation and a negotiation and consent conversation that's all based on mutual desire, so we can understand like what type of experience that person wants to have. So I
Mm.
end up tying a lot of people that only have a curiosity and have never experienced that before, which I take with so much respect because it's like such a intimate experience to really be able to release and trust somebody in this. And I do not take that lightly. I take it with a lot of respect. So um we'll do that and explore it. And I just like will tie them up. And then I'm always tuning in and tuning into their energy. And they've got language to be able to communicate around if it's what feels good and what doesn't and what their boundaries are. And then there's people that it just resonates. And they get into this place where we call it rope drunk, where they're just like, you can see that they're just floaty and light and free and just
Mm.
in the huge, beautiful place of pleasure. And it's not even sexual. A lot of times it's not sexual.
Mhm.
It's just about the connection and the intimacy and that shared moment with that other person.
Mm.
And then there's people I tie up that are like, okay, that's interesting. What happens next? And it just doesn't work for them. It's not practice that feels good. And we're like, all right, we'll try something different. And then we'll say, well, what other curiosities they have? Oh, well, I like to be squished. I like to feel like weight on my body. I'm like, cool. Maybe you want a different type of bondage where we can just like bind you down to the earth and get you like
Mm.
body to body and let you just feel grounded. So that opens up again language and possibilities because we're learning and exploring about ourselves, and that's just information we can use to then create better experiences for us in the future.
Yeah, and so freeing because when you're met by someone like you, if someone says like, I just really want to feel squished, and it's, met with someone like you who's like, awesome, that's great, let's try it. It really lets you begin to like accept yourself and love yourself instead of shaming yourself for, this is such a weird thing that I feel like I want to try and I feel ashamed by it, just from what I see in society. So it's such a healing process, even just you saying like, awesome, let's talk about it. And the other thing I wanted to say is that all of the stuff that you do before the actual experience is so important. It brings um, a, a space of safety, I'm sure, talking through all of those things. It brings a consciousness to the decision and that level of consent that both, of you are in a consciously consenting to the experience, which is a big part of ethical non-monogamy, is that, consensual non-monogamy is like, we are agreeing to this, and this is the ways that we can feel safe in this experience. And I think that from what I understand, it's led you to another aspect of your work in terms of consent and teaching consent.
Yes. So that's something that I'm starting to speak more openly about, is a lot of these practices that we're building. And it is very much that, like, it's not just we just tie up or we have an intense impact scene. There's so much conversation and mutual desire and consent that goes into that. Then we have this beautiful scene, hopefully. And then we also have aftercare afterwards, where we say,
Mm,
how was that? How's your mind? How's your body? Did I respect all your boundaries?
mm,
And giving opportunity to give feedback. So it is a full, complete experience. And so that kind of language and that experience of creating safety, being able to go into these really kind of deep and intense experiences has informed all of the work that I now sell to my corporate clients around consent and sexual harassment prevention
mm,
and gender inclusivity in the workplace and things like that. So all of this work that I do on a private basis, on a lot of one-on-one and private coaching and private sessions, things like that, also informs that work that we do in corporations, which a lot of times I have to work with progressive corporations for that, because they're definitely afraid of it. But and I'm not in there like a dominatrix teaching people how to do consent, but hey, maybe I should be.
you never know. Open up a whole new kind of corporate experience. I do really believe that healing our sexuality opens doors to potential, our personal potential that we may never thought possible. Um, can you speak to that at all?
Yes, just that life is not easy all the time. And there's so much conditioning that we don't even realize. I'm like, we here in the US, it is still very much a patriarchy,
Mhm.
and it affects all of us. I don't care what gender you identify with, it affects all of us. And we are all suffering from the expectations around what men are supposed to be, what women are supposed to be, how we're supposed to show up, and the reinforcement of that through culture and through politics and through all of that. So it is, for me, a truly an act of rebellion when we own our pleasure and can heal that within, because it holds so much of us back. When we
Mhm.
can really heal that and be like, I'm good. I know my power. I know my erotic self. I know I have value that I have to share with the world. Like, it's all fundamentally connected. The worth, the value, our right to be here, our right to have everything that we dream of and everything we want to have is all connected to, I think, our the health of our sexuality.
Mm. Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm just so appreciative of your work because I do think it takes a very strong individual and rebellious too, to really, yeah, I'm with you on that, to question these things. And I feel that this is happening more and more. So I really appreciate your work and how you show up in the world. And can you share your offerings? Like, what if someone, I know you're in New York, but what if someone wanted to work with you? How could someone connect with you in that way?
Totally. You can go to my website. I'm amandakrue.com. You can go to revrucifer.com and see things there. I'm always trying to get in more alignment, and that's part of my process here too,
Mhm.
is just coming more deeply into alignment. But I do virtual coaching and virtual energy sessions, intuitive reading sessions. I do virtual coaching, things like that. And then I also do virtual workshops. So I do a sensual Reiki, a Reiki
Mm.
bondage. So all of those are fully accessible online, and it is, I guarantee, probably the sexiest Zoom call you're ever on.
Nice. I know we talked about this. I'm like equally terrified and intrigued. But I love that. That's like the perfect
Yes.
combination. So we'll have all your links in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And
Awesome.
anything else you want to leave us with?
I just want to like loop it around, since this is all about relationship diversity.
Hmm.
And one of the beautiful things we're talking about play and about BDSM partners and things like that is that we actually call them play partners.
Ooh, what does that look like?
So there are relationships where it's just a play-based relationship where it's not necessarily, I'm not romantically involved, like maybe it's a friendship, but really it's purely for the connection of exploring and building the relationship and the trust within a BDSM or kink play type of dynamic. So there are people with whom that I just tie with, and we're play
Mm.
partners, and there's nothing sexual there. It's a great relationship, and it provides a lot of value, and it provides a lot of value that maybe my romantic partner might not be able to provide in that same way. So I
Yeah,
just
hence
wanted to.
the yes, I love that. And hence the, polyamory, non-monogamy, that, belief that not, one person cannot fill everything for you. And it's also okay to be monogamous and have friends that fill those things, but it's also okay to explore other ways to get your needs met. So if someone was interested in exploring this idea of play partners, how would someone go about doing that or finding people to do
Finding
that with?
people. So there's not a lot of great sites. You can go to like FetLife, but that comes with a huge disclaimer that it is not a very safe site, and there's a lot of
Mm.
trash on there. So it is hard to find, but you can find your local kink and BDSM communities. You can look for local munches, which is a place where BDSM and kinky people meet and just communicate and get to know each other before moving into a play type of space. So if you ever see like a munch, that's usually what's happening there. So again, all
Ooh,
kinds of new
I've never heard of
language.
that before. A munch. Interesting. I do really feel that there are so many underground communities that if you did a search and maybe got into some groups or connected even with Amanda, who has more awareness of where to find safe experiences, because to me, safety is like number one, right? Especially if you're going in, yeah, especially as you're going into these kind of, you know, different experiences, you have to feel safe in order to reap the benefits, right? Of
Yes.
this experience. But I found that there are just underground communities of people who want to try things other than, what the societal norms, and they are around, even if you don't, like, even if you live in a small town, there are those things. It is
They
happening.
they are everywhere. I promise you, they are everywhere, and you can find them. And on that point of safety, absolutely. And please vet your play partners as well,
Mhm.
which means asking other people that have played with them, ask about
Mhm.
their consent practices, ask how they respond when you give feedback. So make sure you vet who you play with for sure.
Yeah, that's really important to do all of the work prior to that. And I wonder, if even like reaching out to someone like you who can help them understand all the things that they really want to be looking into before just jumping into an experience, because again, it's going to be the most beneficial if it's conscious, if it's really, vetted out, and that there are boundaries and, um, discussion that happens beforehand.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Amanda, thank you so much for being you, for your work in the world. And everyone, please go check her out. I'll have all her links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Amanda.
Oh, thank you so much, Carrie. I love this so much. Thank you,
Yay.
thank you, thank you.
I think the first of many. Thanks so much for listening to the Relationship Diversity Podcast. Want to learn more about relationship diversity? I've got a free guide I'd love to send you. Go to www.relationshipdiversitypodcast.com to get yours sent right to you. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast. You being here and participating in the conversation about relationship diversity is what helps us create a space of inclusivity and acceptance together. The more comfortable and normal it is to acknowledge the vast and varied relating we all do, the faster we'll shift to a paradigm of conscious, intentional, and diverse relationships. New episodes are released every Thursday. Stay connected with me through my website, carriejaroslow.com, Instagram, or TikTok. Stay curious. Every relationship is as unique as you are. Are you feeling stuck or unfulfilled in your intimate relationship? Do all your relationships end in the same way? Do you feel like you've lost the spark in your current relationship? Can you never even find one person who you want to explore a relationship with? If you answered yes to any of those questions, are sick and tired of feeling like a failure in your relationships, and desperately desire a different experience, then my 8-week deep reprogramming intensive may be the answer for you. In this program, I work individually with you for 8 transformative weeks. We'll identify the subconscious programming that's keeping you stuck and shift it to a new affirming belief systems. We go deep, we get real, we get results. This is healing unlike anything you've ever experienced before. Here's what people are saying. Jordan from North Carolina said, more has shifted in 8 weeks of working with Carrie than 10 years of psychotherapy. Jane from Sanford, North Carolina said, it's honestly changed my life. And Cassie from Santa Barbara, California said, Carrie's laser precision in helping me diagnose where the stuck energy was helped me make positive movement in our first session alone. Absolutely transformational. I love being a guide and witness to these courageous people who claim that they were done with their past experiences and ready for something different. I'm opening a limited number of spots for 2023 and would love to help you permanently transform your relationship experience. To set up a free 30-minute clarity call where I'll help you uncover your number one block to fulfilling relationships, connect with me through the link in the show notes. You are worthy of experiencing deep fulfillment and love in your relationships. This intensive work will help you get there.